And we're live. All
Yeah,
right. Thanks for being here. So it's about 10 a.m. here Central Time in the United States. What is it in Norway?
it's 15 past 5, yeah, in the afternoon. So,
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I guess to start, if you could tell us a bit about your background, because it's pretty
um,
fascinating.
yeah, where should I start? um, Obviously, I'm not in the US, so I'm living in the west coast of Norway. Um, Been there most of my life, but have had some experiences abroad as well, studying in England and Denmark and living in
Yeah.
Germany,
I
and
didn't even
getting
know
back to
all
Norway
this.
after. Oh, yeah. No, when I got interested in psychology, I was looking for places to study, and it was just opening up opportunities in England. So I took the opportunity, and half a year after, I was in England. So,
Yeah, a lot of practice with English too, I'm sure.
yeah, it was. Yeah, my English is not perfect. It's you have to maintain it. Yeah, it's good to practice a bit again. So yeah,
So
yeah,
you did all that, and then professionally, what path led you to where we are today? And then we can talk a bit
yeah.
about how we know each other. But what led you to Lund?
What led me to Lund? Yeah, that's a good question actually. Um, I was once trying to become an accountant.
An accountant?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
that was my
Psychology versus accounting. That's a
yeah.
pretty drastic.
Yeah, it's a change. Yeah. At some point, I realized that accounting would be too boring. Really, I found it interesting and understandable, but not so exciting. Uh, so, so after 3 years of economy, I changed to psychology and moving to England.
So
Um,
you studied 3 years economy before you
yeah,
decided to switch it up.
yeah, in the Norwegian school system, it's a bit different from the US.
How
So you
so?
can start specializing after 9 years in school. So I
Oh, okay.
started the path to economy, and that would, yeah, normally lead to some school in economy afterwards. But you have options after these 3 years. If you're doing it right, you can choose different things as well. So I decided to do psychology. So I moved to Brighton in England, Sussex University.
So that's where
Uh,
you studied psychology, was in
yeah, I
England.
took my Bachelor of Science with honors in Sussex University. And when I moved to, after 3 years, I moved to Denmark, and lived there for only 1 year for a master's, but took the second year for master's while living in Germany. Um,
What was the master's degree in?
Psychology, yeah.
It
Hmm.
was just in psychology. Gotcha.
Yeah. So I had like after my finishing my studies, I moved back to Norway. Started practicing in a local hospital in the Hardangerfjords. I don't know if that's known, but it's yeah, it's quite nice place. It's like very
What makes it so nice?
it's yeah, it's fjords with like 3,000 feet high mountains on the side, and you have like
Oh, wow.
fruit farms, mostly cherries and apples and such, and yeah, it's stunning landscapes. So
I feel like just a quick sidetrack. We got to see the view from your back because
yeah,
it's
that is not
amazing if you want to.
that dramatic, but you could have a look.
Yeah, lift the camera real quick.
So, oops. So
I
this is
mean,
less dramatic mountains, but
that is just awesome.
if you're interested in Hardanger Fjord, you should have a Google it, and you find some fantastic images.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just a few hours from here. Yeah, in Norway we measure distances in hours because the distances doesn't matter because it's yeah, the distance might not be that far, but it can be a very long time to drive.
Just because the
So,
way
Yeah,
the
and you have ferries and you have undersea tunnels and you have
yeah, it's
everything. So
such a different world than over in the United States. We can pretty much drive anywhere.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, nice driving in the US compared to Norway. You get covered great distances in short time, but here it is quite yeah, quite much time lost
Yeah.
in ferries and bridges and small narrow roads. So yeah,
All right. So you
even if
did
it's improving. Yeah, but
absolutely.
I started my career in Venlo local hospital, working in acute psychiatry. So I did that for a year in that hospital, and I moved to my current place of residence in Haugesund, in a bit larger hospital, and continued doing acute psychiatry.
What separates when you say acute psychiatry, what are the different types of psychiatry?
Uh, you have like um, elective care, very planned care in some sense, and that is where most patients are not that
Like kind of more, I guess, chronic, like long term.
yeah, chronic and maybe more stable conditions or predictable conditions. So working in acute psychiatry gets everything yeah, happens acutely.
So acute,
So
so essentially it's sometimes involuntary or people, having really
yeah, you have a
significant,
much larger degree of involuntary treatments. So you have a psychosis, mania,
yep.
life crisis. So it might not be the wisest place to start.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I figure. I just want to make sure I clarify
Yeah,
everything for anybody listening because there are different types.
yeah. So I had like 4 years of acute psychiatry, and then I had to do some obligatory practice in order to become a specialist. One specialist education is normally 5 years. So in the first 5 years, when I specialized in clinical psychology for adults. After that, I was asked to take a management role for a team for neuropsychologists. Well, only neuropsychologist, I would be myself.
Yeah.
But it was like a neuropsychological test lab of technicians, but no psychologists. So I started that, yeah, a new specialization. So I found that very interesting, very analytical field. And after
You
doing
say
that
very
for
political,
analytical,
analytical.
yeah, because you have to, yeah, you're using tests and statistical methods in addition to gathering data and all kind of, yeah, most people associate neuropsychologists with testing, but that is somewhat misleading because testing is only a part of what we do. The hard job is to analyze huge amounts of data, and not only mathematical analysis, but yeah, trying to understand how things fit together. Yeah, so after doing neuropsychology, I started to getting more in higher manager positions, so like hospital management. So I
Which
had
is
like six.
it's a completely different job, right? Managing people
Yeah,
versus
it's
just
just,
working on your own. I
yeah,
mean, that adds so many complexities to
it
what you
does
do.
really, and I had some like stepwise increasement in management responsibility. I started off with a small team, only being 3 people, and this team increased to becoming a much larger team, like yeah, maybe 11, 12 or something at the most. And then I got
That's
a higher management
that
position.
you were supervising directly, 11 to 12 people.
Yeah, yeah, I've developed this team and got
Oh,
yeah, so that was really interesting to work to expand the team. So in the end, I think we were like 5 or 6 psychologists and 4 technicians. Yeah, and we yeah, so it's developed quite a lot in these years. At most, maybe 7 psychologists or something. Um, and when I moved up one management level, so I kept the responsibility for this team, but having a team supervisor under me, and having like 7 different teams working in different specialized settings. And when later becoming the manager for the psychiatry, psychiatric ward at my hospital. So that was on, yeah, both outpatient and inpatient services, for specialized care. And after doing that for like different management roles for like 16 years, I realized that I need new challenges.
Yeah.
And there is really where my path to Lund in one way starts. Because I saw an ad for a position in the National Investigation Board for health-related incidences. So I
So what
thought
is that
that sounds
role?
like
What does that role look like exactly?
uh,
Like you investigate adverse outcomes and
yeah. It's the National Healthcare Investigation Board. So you get all these notifications from different hospitals or communal services about things happening out in the country. Mistake, also treatments which have gone wrong, or people who died, all kind of incidences which can happen in the healthcare sector.
and is the goal essentially what do we
So
learn from this or from
yeah,
these
it's
events?
non-punitive, so it's only the learning and improvement, which is the focus. No accountability claims from these investigations, and everyone who is interviewed in an investigation has protection of anonymity and cannot be followed. If I have done anything, a mistake myself, I should not be punished in any way. And what is happening in this or turning up in this investigation cannot be used against them in court and such. So it's a very a nice, non-punitive
Yeah, and allows you to
investigation board.
get a lot more information, right? If
Yeah,
practitioners were
it's
worried that they could face criminal charges for what they did, you'd get less information. People would be afraid to share stuff.
exactly. So that was. But while walking there, I met a former Lund student, and
Oh, okay.
and he talked about how it was in Lund and
I mean, it's a
reading suggests.
it's a really
I'm sorry.
amazing. I was going to say it's a really amazing program, and it's really
Yeah,
unique from. I mean, I don't know much else like it, which is why obviously, collaborative safety keeps sending people all the way to Sweden
yeah.
to get these degrees, and it's really cool the way it's structured and the different disciplines and all of it.
Mm.
But sorry, continue on what your connection was
Yeah,
telling you about it.
so I naturally learned a lot from this colleague, and um, was also convinced that the new challenges I was seeking, I could find while taking a master's degree in Lund. So yeah, uh, I started off trying to see how can I manage this. It was. I was in this investigation board for like 2.5 years, and it came up a position more locally where I could get this education in Lund. So I decided to switch position, and so I went back to the clinic where I started to work, but now as a clinical lead. I don't know if you know that position. Is that a common phrase, a clinical lead?
Clinical lead. So I work in child welfare, not necessarily psychology, but that does sound familiar. I'm sure we
Yeah.
have an equivalent.
So in our clinic, we have like many different locations, and we have employees spread out over a large geographic area. So we have like 1,000 employees in our clinic. And you have a director, and the director wants someone to advise in clinical matters and investigate incidences in the clinic. So my position is a clinical lead. So I'm working on all this clinical
Well, it's
questions at a more system level, not an individual case so much. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really cool, and it's just crazy we talk about complexity a lot in our master's program. And when you're dealing with some of these psychological conditions and challenges and it's impossible to predict the outcome for a lot of these patients that come in, right? Or if not all of them, because there's just so much going on. It's a really crazy world that you work in. And then there's
Yeah,
bound to be bad outcomes just by the nature of where people are when they arrive.
I think that is might be the difference between healthcare and other sectors. If you think like space flight or production or whatever, you're trying to produce something and in the process not produce harm. In a like a hospital setting, the harm is already happening.
That's
The
such a good
starting
way to
point is
put
that
it.
some harm is developing. So
Yeah,
our option is to
it's a huge distinction trying to prevent harm versus there's already harm. Now we need to manage as best we can to mitigate this harm.
Yeah, exactly. So if you compare with aircraft safety, which is like very popular to discuss in many settings, we are dealing with aircrafts with all kind of issues,
Yeah.
and we're just trying to land them in a safe way. But
Well,
none
well,
of
child welfare is the exact same, and we're coming into
absolutely.
these situations after something bad has happened or allegedly happened.
Mhm. Or seeming to happen, or seem to be in development. Naturally, in some cases, if you do nothing, everything will turn out well, but you don't know, and mostly you need to do something. So, but the main issue is that things are already happening, and
Yep.
uh, one sees a need to intervene.
Yeah,
So,
that's a really good. I like how you put that because sometimes I try to explain the distinction between, in our program, historically it's been a lot of aviation, nuclear, oil and mining, these high risk industries, but with healthcare, mental health, child welfare, social services, it's the science is still super useful and similar, but the application and just the nature of the work is quite different, and there's a lot more
mm,
competing goals. I think when you think of aviation, the goal is to land the airplane safely. Obviously, there's a
mm,
lot of complexities within that and stuff I'm sure we're not aware of just because we don't work in that field. But I feel like when I get a
mm,
case for child welfare, and sometimes there's court involvement, sometimes there's
mm,
the supervisors and caseworkers disagree on stuff and then families disagree on stuff. There's just it feels like so much more human interaction and variability when we're dealing with these cases compared to, but maybe I'm totally oversimplifying aviation by even saying this. I don't know, but it
yeah,
feels different.
I
I'm
don't
not sure how
know.
well I'm articulating.
I'm going into the same line of thought really, and I think it's a different kind of complexity at least, because and like currently I'm working on an assignment with respect to one of the questions is productivity, efficiency versus safety. And where
Can
everything
I
becomes turned upside down and compared to like aviation or space flight or whatever, because productivity in a hospital is patient safety in itself. Because if you don't have an efficient system, people die waiting
Yep.
or get injured waiting.
Yep.
So we have no option. We don't set the pace of production. That is the randomness of epidemiological, epidemiological happenings in the society. It just happens. Sometimes you get a lot of people needing help, and sometimes you don't. But mostly you have a constant push. And if you're not efficient enough and you don't take not able to meet the demand, people get injured.
Yeah,
Uh,
so I'm actually working on that exact same question, and I came to the exact same thought in child welfare, in the sense that, if the goal 100% you just want to be as thorough as possible. So the question saying, are thoroughness and efficiency, are they
mm,
a trade-off, or safety and
mm,
production, the kind of interchangeable? And if you wanted to be fully thorough in child welfare, just like you're saying, and you wanted to spend all this time getting all this information and all that, well, one, you couldn't. There's still going to be limits to the information you could get. And it's going to take away time from other cases and other tasks and other families. And
mm,
it will create a lot more problems. So at
mm,
some point, you just have to find whatever balance makes sense and prioritize what's most urgent and just do things because you can't spend enough time on every case to be fully thorough or you wouldn't do anything.
Yeah, that is a very huge challenge, I think, and sometimes different for people working in healthcare as well to understand because this is a system level reflection. Um, if you have an individual psychologist or doctor or nurse working with a patient, um, they might think, oh, this patient needs to stay in hospital for like 3 months more, or they need another 10, 20 outpatient consultations or whatever. And I don't question that need. It's sometimes gains can be made with continuing treatments. But the question is not, does this patient need these extra 3 months or does this patient need the extra 10, 20 consultations? The question is these 10 extra consultation or these 3 extra months more useful for this patient than it is for the patient waiting?
Yep.
Um, and the patient waiting is often not a concrete person. It is an imagined person because you don't know what is coming in.
Oh, it's
Sometimes you
so good.
know,
It's impossible to know.
yeah. So you get this like conflict between management level and the individual workers getting that more emotionally bound to a single case and
Yeah, and
less focused on the system level
that
priorities.
that absolutely exists in child welfare too. And it's what I've learned is it's really hard sometimes when you're the worker and you're the one talking to these kids and families and you're calling all the providers and you're the person actually interacting with these people. And then you have to tell a narrative to your
Mm.
supervisor to try to explain, here's the situation. But it's impossible to even fully do that because they don't have your perspective actually being there and seeing it. And it's hard to
Mm.
always explain to management, here's what I saw, here's why I think we should do this. And then
Mm.
sometimes, they just hear a fact or something stands out and that kind of leads where it goes, if that makes sense. And I see this and I have a fantastic supervisor, but sometimes we do conflict on what we think is best in a case.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, it's a constant struggle. Yeah, I think managed in a good way. This dynamics are part of adjustments in the system, so it is not only undesirable, it's sometimes desirable or sometimes useful. But if you don't find this right balance of these forces for management and the clinician doesn't find out find a healthy balancing point, it could be an issue naturally. So,
Yeah, well, what it's I love that you're in the field that you are in our program, and then Rebecca as well as in healthcare, because I feel like we just relate so strongly on the concepts we're learning and how they apply, and I think it's a cool perspective, and it's really cool to contrast with the other people as well.
mm,
Um, I'm curious, kind of in general, and you have a lot of experience. What do you think are some of the I don't know if simple is the right word, but simple things people can do that's just overall really beneficial for their mental health and keeping sane, and especially for people like you and me who sometimes see really traumatic stuff and work in these
yeah.
difficult environments. I mean, we'll start with what can people in general do that's really good for their mental health, and then what can people in fields like us do to make sure that we're okay and processing things well and taking care of ourselves.
Mm. I think in general, having a good social network uh, for anyone is number one. I think if you have that, much is done already. Social isolation for anyone in any case
I mean,
is.
it's torture, right? If you're gonna socially isolate someone and keep them alone, like
Mm,
that feels like torture.
yeah, do you know this term cabin fever?
Yes,
Yeah, so if you isolate anyone totally without any contact with social media or telephone or anything for like 2 or 3
they
days,
start going crazy.
yeah, and I think most people are like that. You naturally have sometimes about people enjoying isolation in some way or going into the wilderness or something. But mostly when I meet people saying that, oh, I don't know, have so much social needs, it's not actually true. I think it's mostly social anxiety. and it's easier to tell oneself that I don't need social contact than to say that I am afraid to go into social situations. So I very, very seldom meet people which actually do not like social contact. I think that is such a small fraction of the population that mostly you can assume that some more social contact is of a good.
So what do
So
you
that is.
think in general when and we've talked about this on prior episodes because I think relationships are so important. I mean, what's the point of life, right? If it's not for the connections with people and to have
Mm.
people to share it with. How do you if there's even an answer, how do you go about developing strong, healthy relationships? And weirdly enough, I feel like there's a paradox where if you're trying too hard to have a good relationship or like that, like it comes across as not genuine. So I don't know the best. I don't know. I'll leave it at that and see what you got.
Yeah, I actually maybe this is a bit paradoxical answer, but I believe knowing what you want in a social relationship and being picky with who you want around yourself is important. And just being yourself, being honest, because if you are anyone but yourself, you will always doubt your relationships because you know that the persons you are having around yourself see a different person from what you really are yourself, or if you're faking interests
Yeah.
in topics to get friends. Yeah, you might maybe get more people around yourself, but you're never yourself. So I think just being yourself and realizing, and that this is where it is somewhat paradoxical. Most people you meet will not be your friends. It's an
Yeah.
extremely small fraction of the
You
people
can't
you ever
extend
meet.
your time and energy to every person you come
Yeah,
across.
but I've been thinking about it and trying to do some maths about it as well, being aspiring accountant once.
Yeah.
um, and if you think, how many people have you gone to school with, studied with, worked with,
Thousands. I mean,
and met on parties, met wherever, and how many good friends do you really need? A handful, maybe.
five.
So, so it's like 1,000, as a 1,000 people you meet, maybe or less, which is actually going to become your good friends. So I think being picky and being yourself, not wasting time with people you're not compatible with, is one of the way to get good friendships. So you have to decline more people than you accept in one way.
That's that you formulated that answer so well. And I think one important caveat to add is I feel like sometimes people say be yourselves, but there is a degree, right? We're not ourselves. Like my interactions with my friends versus my parents versus when we're in class at Loon, it changes a little bit how you act and you know how you present yourself. But overall, my interests are the same. I still have the same personality. I'm still extroverted. Like you said, you
Mm,
can't fake
mm,
interest in things or so shift your personality that it creates a disconnect because that comes
mm.
across so disingenuine. And then
Yeah.
you won't feel fulfilled trying to be friends with someone who you're
Mm.
not actually
Yeah.
compatible with.
So even if you're able to fake it so perfectly that people fall into it, you
You won't
yourself
feel good about
will
it.
not be satisfied.
Yep,
So I
exactly.
think there's the aspect of social anxiety as well, because most people are more afraid of talking to an audience than to die.
Why
If you look at the statistics.
why
So
is
if
that
you ask
so?
what is your main fear, what is you most afraid of, and death is number three or something, and talking for a huge audience is number one. So
Why do you
people are
think that
so
is?
uh, it could be many explanations, but
Because I
uh,
feel that I
we
mean
are
I
a
do
social
get
animal. We are a social animal,
yeah.
and social rejection is, as we are talking about now, is maybe one of them. Yeah, the worst condition you can be in. It's like
It
biologically
hurts like
linked.
physically.
Yeah.
If you're upset socially or in a
Mm.
relationship. I mean, people, they go through bad breakups. Like there's physical symptoms. Like they don't eat, they feel sick. Like it
Mm.
just it it is crazy how much connections and human our relationships mean to us.
Yeah. So we are a social animal, and we cannot, most of us cannot live alone. But in relation to social anxiety, I think the issue is that if you are trying to expand your network and you do that by trying to maintain like fake relationships, or you're trying to be someone else, you're actually fueling that anxiety. So the
Ah,
clue is actually if you are freeing yourself from the idea that everyone needs to like you, the people you are getting around yourself in the long run will be better for you, and you are not so anxious in these sort of situations.
and
So
paradoxically, not wanting people to like you will make people like you more in
that
general.
is, yeah, in general, that is also true. I've learned the hard way that, yeah, being more direct, being more honest, to talk, yeah, is the way. And I try to do that in all kind of situations. Even with patients, I'm quite direct, not being a typical psychologist, maybe packing too much,
Kind of fluff.
padding too much message. I think most people appreciate if you are direct, if you
Yeah,
do it in a respectful way. Mm.
I think being transparent is for me at least. I really like when people are transparent, and I get told by families, I've gotten some compliments for being so transparent. They're like, "Thank you so much for just keeping us updated." And back to do a child welfare analogy, a huge part of successful outcomes and successful cases is successfully, I know that's kind of a label, but successfully engaging the family and
Mm.
having them trust you and being honest with them and them being honest with you. I mean, it just leads to better outcomes when we're able to do that and spend the time to do that. And if if I'm not honest and I lie to these people, why should they trust me for anything? People are
Exactly.
already skeptical whenever the
Mm.
government's involved, as they probably should be.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
and I don't know.
But
That's a
there's
thought I
one
have.
other paradox in this, and that is if how you talk to other people. Many people fall into a trap of becoming people pleasers,
Yes.
and but I have been doing lots of supervision, having young psychologists training to become specialists, and uh, if you're only telling the good stuff and you're just fueling what is good, yeah, like
Oh, you mean
compliments.
with clients, you're just telling them, "Oh, you're so
No,
amazing at this."
no,
You're
no, no. I think when I'm supervising specialists, also becoming specialists, it's easy. Oh, you're doing well with these clients, and you're doing so good.
mm,
And or this report you're writing, oh, it's so fantastic, everything is so fine. They actually do not learn to trust you because they know that you're never going to tell them if anything is not correct.
yeah, and
Uh,
it's how else do you learn?
Yeah, so if you have a supervisor which balance positive and negative feedback in a good way, you know that if I'm doing anything wrong, he will tell me or she will tell me, and if I'm doing something right, I will get credit for that as well. So this social anxiety part it might maybe lessened if you're also getting a more nuanced feedback.
And I think it builds a lot of mutual respect that you can be honest. I know you're not just tell me all the good stuff. You want me to be
Mm.
better, you know?
Yeah,
And
exactly,
and obviously there's levels, right? You can't be harsh,
exactly.
cruel about the feedback, but saying, "Hey, you're doing great on this.
Mm.
There's some room to work. Here's how you do it." Because I think the other thing sometimes people give feedback that's more just their personal opinion or not very, there's not much you
Mm.
can do about it, you know? I think when
Mm.
giving this feedback, you got to give somebody something actionable.
Exactly. So I think yeah, you have to be within the zone of possible development.
Yep.
If you have someone who has many issues to work on, it doesn't help to expect from it they should change their personality totally. You have to
Yeah.
work with what they have and try to expand and see how can I use what they have in a better way to
And it's
do
what
my
else
job.
is interesting, and I'm sure you experiencing this managing people is how different people are. I mean, just how complex humans are, right? Like we don't even know why ourselves feel and think the way we do sometimes. Like sometimes I'm in a bad mood, I'm kind of pissy. I'm like, I don't even know why I'm angry right now.
Yeah.
And then to try to understand why someone else is acting like they are or feeling that way and manage them. I mean, it's just I don't know.
Yeah, but that's one point where people often get backwards because I think I'm angry because this and this happened. But your anger or your romantic feelings or whatever feelings you have is like a product of your total situation and biology. There were some studies, I think it's not in the 1960s, where they gave people adrenaline without them knowing that was what they had been receiving. And they put them in a waiting room, and they were supposed to go some psychological studies afterwards. But the study was actually in a waiting room.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting.
and what happened is that you had a situation in the waiting room with all actors naturally, outside the subject for the studies. Um, and the situation was like slightly annoying. It was created to be slightly annoying, but the people who had received adrenaline interpreted the situation as much more annoying or
Yeah, because
provocative.
they're like
Yeah. So
extra
you could think that it was the situation that made the emotion, but the physiology behind it influenced how they perceived the situation and acted themselves in the situation. And so it is for every one of us going through each day. You have not been eating, or you have hormone levels changing, or
a
uh,
combination of all of it.
it's the sum. Uh, and the thing is that, or you have a social conflict at work or whatever, and you come home and you have this emotion, which is a total product of your biology, psychology, and social situation, and and you try to interpret it. And if you have a partner, well, doing something slightly annoying, the explanation for your mental condition might be turned against the partner or turned against someone else. So
And
the
then that harms your
emotions,
relationships, and then you're back
yeah.
to what you
So
need
the
the most.
emotion seeks an explanation, an easy explanation, not a complex explanation. So you put it on a partner, you put it on whatever.
Isn't
Um,
that's a word, right? Is it displacement when you're upset about something and you kind of place it on something else?
yeah,
Or
yeah, but
I'm sure there's more nuance to that.
yeah, I think I'm not one with the most about displacement, but I think displacement might be too simplified as well.
Hmm.
Because if you're thinking that displacement from one thing to other thing, it's not that easy. It's a displacement from the total product of your produce the situation making your emotional condition, which is like centered on one object or a few objects. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so it's not like from one to one, but it's yeah.
What else
Uh,
I think is so interesting, and the waiting room study you were talking about made me think of it, is the placebo effect and how
yeah.
powerful that can be on how people feel and interpret things. And I mean,
Mm.
it's really amazing. Are you familiar with the study where it was a double blind controlled study, and they took patients who had some sort of specific type of chronic knee pain, and all of them got cut open surgically, but only half of them got the actual procedure. And I I wish I had a fact checker because I haven't heard this study in a while. I could be butchering it.
Mm.
But some version of the recovery rates were about equal for the people who actually had the procedure versus the people
Mm.
who just got cut open and thought they had it.
Yeah. Placebo is really important, and in this waiting room study, they used saltwater injections as a control. But with respect to what your surgical studies you're mentioning, is that there's two things coming to mind. One thing is that knee operations is a field with much discussion and often much harm to
Oh,
patients.
interesting.
So operating on knees is something one should really, yeah, consider carefully because maybe most of the surgeries done do more harms than good. So in that respect, doing a sham, so it's called sham surgery, like
Yeah,
a
where it's
not real surgery, might be better because you're not messing around with things which are really hard to do right. And the same
So it might
effect.
not be so placebo after all.
No, it's not a surgery might be do more harm than good. So it's
There,
better to not.
but there are lots of studies supporting the placebo effect, and it
Yeah,
really does change how people think
yeah.
and
Placebo effect
feel.
is real. No doubt about that. And but particularly if you have a treatment which is not very efficient, then you might be better off with placebo.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, man. Makes sense.
Because
Well,
I thought that
wasn't
if you in the 1800s, going to a doctor was really dangerous because the doctor did all kind of things which were not very efficient.
right? Didn't they
Uh,
think like cutting open, like you bleeding in certain areas would expel bad energy?
yeah, bloodletting and everything. So in the 1800s,
Lobotomies. I mean,
yeah, exactly. That was a little bit later, but in early times of medicine, you are better off not seeing a doctor because the risk of infections and everything. But with back surgery, knee surgery, and such, you might, to some degree, get some of the same issues. So,
well,
yeah.
one of the most amazing healthcare changes ever, right? That really helped people was they figured out doctors need to wash their hands.
Yeah.
Wasn't that like
I think that is
specifically, I think in pregnancy complications and the amount
exactly.
of mothers who were dying upon birth, they started
Exactly.
washing their hands and it plummeted.
Yeah. In like regular medicine, that is might be one of the main advances. It's another interesting example if you're looking at as a vaccinations. Naturally, is one not so popular anymore, unfortunately. But you have another thing as well, and that is vitamin C. With the seafaring nations having losing a lots of seafarers due to vitamin
Oh
C.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that was, no, I don't remember his name, but it was a doctor studying different supplements for seafarers. And they found out that giving them it was lime or citrus as a lemon juice.
Yeah, because those have a lot of
Yeah, if you do
vitamin
that,
C.
you don't get scurvy. Scurvy was really a deadly disease in all
And they
times.
didn't know why, right? For the longest time,
Yeah, yeah,
it just happened.
but after they found out that you could give this lemon or lime concentrate, and that's none got ill. It's like 100% efficient treatment against scurvy. So, but I think it took like 100, 200 years or something before it was implemented.
It's
Um,
amazing. It makes you right because in hindsight, it sounds so simple. I
yeah.
wonder what we're doing now in society that we're going to look back in 200 years and be like, I can't believe they didn't just do that.
But yeah, one thing is thinking 200 years back and things they didn't know. But in this case, they knew.
Oh,
Some people knew that this is efficient, and they was not able to implement it before, like 120 years later, for all seafarers. So that is interesting, like a medical discovery, and hugely important for seafaring nations at the time.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, let's go back. So I asked you what people in general can do to really benefit their mental health, and you talked about relationships. And then I also
yeah.
want to talk more specifically about people who work in traumatic fields. But is there anything else you want to add just in general?
I think for in general, physical activity is one of the main
Yes.
causes
Let's talk
for
about
good mental health.
you told me about the high intensity interval
Yeah,
training. Tell me about that study again.
there are many studies, but for physical health and for mental health, high intensity interval training is the most efficient training, and you see that as a high correlation between intensity and outcome, both for heart conditions and also for mental conditions.
So
So,
what qualifies as high intensity interval training?
so,
Because I know there's different types people do.
yeah, so the thing is, you normally will use a pulse measurement, like a Apple Watch or something to
Like a
measure
heart
your.
rate monitor.
Yeah, you need, yeah, exactly. And you need to get the different levels of intensity, but you need to get your pulse really high, and you're training like Normally starting off 4 minutes with slow or calm, and 4 minutes really hard, getting a pulse really, really high, and 4 minutes with calmer, and 4 minutes high, and you have at least four intervals with high intensity.
Yeah.
That
That's
doesn't,
isn't that called the Norwegian 4x4? Isn't there a na
yeah, because
I've
it's a
heard that
study
term.
in, yeah, it's studies in Trondheim.
So it came out of Norway, this concept that
I should not say that the whole concept came out from there, but there are some of the largest studies in the world that come from Trondheim.
gotcha.
So, and
But
you have like one app you can download as well, which measures how much time has your pulse been in these higher intervals through the last week. So you have like a goal you can work against to attain good effects of training, physical training. And
yeah, yeah.
you don't need that much. That's the interesting thing as well. If you do that like 3 times a week, 4x4, you're not spending like hours of each week
No, it's
exercising.
like a 30-minute workout, really, right?
Yeah, let's say 40, just times
With
three.
warm up, cool down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And um, so you have to like exercising, yeah, less than 2 hours a week, and you get amazing results. And the additional advantage of like adding another round or
So for someone who's
more time,
really,
it's not that much actually. So you get most of the effect already from these first 2 hours a week.
yeah, yeah.
So
So for someone who's really busy, I think that's good to hear that you don't need to work out every day. You don't need to work out for
yeah.
hours.
I
Eh,
think every other day, like
But
40
should
minutes.
you balance this high intensity interval training with also doing strength training? Or is that not as beneficial or
That
mentally?
is, strength training has many benefits as well. It's not my field, but there's many benefits, particularly with advancing age. But and yeah, absolutely good reasons doing that. But for the mental health, I think documentation is much less convincing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, yeah.
do it, but but not do not believe that that is
Well,
what's
it's
going.
so I really enjoy working out and I've worked out consistently for years now and I do different things. I do the same thing every week, but I vary my types of workout. And on
Mm.
Friday, I always do some form of high intensity interval training. And even though it's one of the shorter workouts I do, it is so hard. And I really do push myself, but you just like getting your heart rate up, it's like your body is just screaming and flashing and saying, why are you doing this to me? But you really do feel good after and
Yeah.
accomplished and like almost clearer in your head.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
wow, it is challenging. Maybe I push it harder than I should a little bit, but
Mhm.
it's that's always on Fridays. I'm like, oh, I got to do this one,
Mhm. Yeah, and that is also helping for stamina because you're building capacity.
and your
So
VO2 max goes up.
yeah, exactly. So you can see quite amazing response on VO2 max doing this. Yeah,
What's considered a good VO2 max,
and that you have like tables for different ages and
depending on the
genders.
age? Yeah.
In my
Mine's
age,
pretty high. I'm over, I've been in the like mid 60s, like 64,
that
63.
is really good. In my age, I think the average is around 38. So anything above that is naturally good, and yeah, the higher the better. But yeah, probably also until a certain point.
So so back to overall what we can do for our mental health. The things that would drive it the most would be relationships, physical activity, specifically high intensity interval training.
Mm.
What what else, if anything, would you add to this? The
Yeah,
things that make the most impact and things people can do.
yeah. You have to have something that gives meaning to your life. That is, in one way, obvious, but you know, what
But in a
drives you,
sense,
what
one of the most
interests you.
difficult things you've said.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, naturally it is, and people seek that in many different ways. But what is your like? What is your drivers? What will brings you motivation? Motivation is a tricky word. We could talk about that another time. But what brings joy to your life? And yeah, maybe it's hiking in the mountains. It's a really nice thing to do, I find. Or yeah, reading books or whatever you do find that we have something, or that is like specific things, but also feeling that you have a job and situation where you're doing something meaningful, and yeah, and
Because I
that
mean,
meaning you have to.
the amount of time we spend working in our lives. I mean, I can think of few things that would make you more miserable than being in a job that you feel so disconnected from, that you feel you're not making any sort of difference. You don't really like the people you work with. I mean, it's just like a recipe for a unsatisfying life. And then, like you said, you come back home, you don't like your job, you're already angry. I mean, it's just having a career that gives you some sort of purpose or meaning, like you said, I think is so, so important. And then also having the activities outside of it. But your career is what shit like that's what you spend most of your time doing for
Mm.
the large amount of your adult life.
Yeah. Yeah. To some degree, that is also an option, actually.
It's what?
It's an option. You choose it.
Yeah, yeah.
I had some very successful people which I've consulted, and um, they're talking about like the meaninglessness of what they're doing. They have succeeded like beyond anyone's dreams in business, and they don't
Oh,
find
so
it
people who are
fulfilling.
super successful on paper, they feel
Yeah, and
just,
and
what am
but
I
just
doing?
wants to have a quiet life and walk in the forest.
Yeah. But I think it's another nuance to add to this is you also have to appreciate that at the end of the day, a job's a job, right? And it's not always going to be great. You're not going to wake up every day feeling great. I think just in general, having a sense that you know there's going to be bad days, but you feel like you're working towards something that means something to you.
Yeah,
And there's room to do it, but I think you can't get too sidetracked, right? To I'm going to be an influencer in Bali this day, and then I'm going to be an accountant next month, and then because
yeah.
you're all over the place and you're not gaining any real skills. I
Mm,
think there's satisfaction in showing up every day, being consistent, and working in some direction where there's a certain degree, but you're staying in this lane that you feel like will lead you to something meaningful, if that makes sense. Like kind of go on
yeah,
a journey.
yeah. A journey is a good term, I think. But yeah, the but the need for everyone needs some income or some safety, like in a sense. But the more time you spend.
Wait, Heine. Oh no, I lost the connection. Still on Wi-Fi. Did my Wi-Fi go out? I'm gonna text.
No, I don't hear you. You are muted.
I said I don't know what happened there.
No, I don't know. I had you, but you didn't tell me, obviously.
Does it can is it I wonder if I hope the recording's still saved or is just
Yeah, the
continued.
recording I think should be saved, but I think
That
you
would
have to
suck if not. We've
restart.
had a really good convo so far.
Yeah,
So sorry, what were you saying? I know we were talking about the
I think
meaning.
you have to restart the recording. I don't know if the recording stopped.
It says it's recording.
Okay. Mm.
It said it
Because I
started it
didn't get
back.
anyone. Yeah. No, but what I'm saying is that the more time you spend on your job, the more you have to be certain that what you're doing is what makes you happy. Um,
I'm listening. I'm just plugging in my computer.
yeah. So, because I think some people spend a lot of time in a job and earn lots of money, but they don't get the satisfaction from life they are seeking. So I just think that's the balance is also anyone can do a job for a while and thinking this is about the money and I do what I want outside job. But if you're spending like 40, 50 hours on a job every week, you really need to make that time must be sensible for you.
Yeah.
And I'm not judging. Whatever makes you happy is okay, but the more hours you spend, the more you have to consider, could I spend these hours in a different way? Is that my path to happiness, really?
Well, there's a curve too, right? Where you're like, I imagine if you spend 2 hours doing something, that third hour is not going to be quite as productive as the first two. And then you're on your sixth hour, like you just, I don't, I think sometimes we get lost in doing more so busy work than work that's
Mm,
actually kind of driving our goal and what we're doing, if that makes sense.
mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. For everyone, it's finding the right balance in activity. How much time do I need to spend on the different activities? The exercise I often do with patients actually is just asking, what do you need to do every day in order to feel well? What do you need to do every week? What do you need to do every month?
Do you
And what
get
do you
pretty common answers, or does that tend to
Oh,
vary
no,
greatly?
that varies quite greatly. Some people say that every day I need to have a little bit calm in the morning and different drinking coffee and reading the newspapers or whatever. Uh, or someone needs, I need to take some exercise in the morning or whatever. People have everything what I need to do every day in order to have a good life. And what do I need to do every week? Yeah, I need to see friends once or twice a week if I'm going to be happy. Um, or exercise or whatever. And every month, yeah, I like to go to the cinema or concerts or whatever. And every year I need to have at least one or two travels as examples.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So people have a different like a mix, but it's important to know what from experience or from experimentation what makes me happy and try to find the balance.
So for
And
you,
maybe
what would your answers to those questions be?
oh yeah, yeah.
We'll
Should
start
have seen
with
that one coming.
for the day.
I listen a lot to audiobooks and read a lot. I think I passed 126 books last year.
Oh wow. Specific genre, or do you vary it?
Like my career, I have like a very general focus. So, uh, yeah, much academic literature, but also yeah, sociology, which is that's directly my field, but also science fiction, history,
Oh yeah.
biography, travel journals, anything really. But yeah, most books, yeah, either related to interests, work-related interests like safety and such, or like historical things and science fiction. I think that is the uh, main topics in what I'm
Some
diving
interesting
into.
stuff.
Yeah, philosophy as well. I have not so much lately, but it's
So
also
pretty much
interesting.
everything but like romance and drama novels.
Yeah, romance is just very small fraction.
More for the girls.
It's not every year. One of these books turns out, even if it might be packed into some of things going on in other books. But yeah, that's not a large portion of what I'm
So
reading now.
what about for your week?
I need my 3 times exercise every week, high interval training, three times a week at
So
least.
you practice that yourself, doing the
Uh,
high
I,
interval
I,
training.
I get a better life when I do. No doubt about it. I
What
have
do you
had
use to do it?
now I'm using like an elliptical trainer. Um, yeah, that is what works best for me now. I have recent surgery in my spine, so I had a spinal condition which had to be operated by neurosurgeons. So I had to be a bit careful with all the types of
Oh, that's
exercise.
terrifying.
Yeah, it was quite terrifying. It was a complicated procedure.
When was that procedure?
In November of last year.
Oh,
So
right before Lund.
exactly right before starting in Lund.
I couldn't even tell.
No, it was actually a question if I could go because I could hardly sit. So before and after surgery,
Oh
so I had like
wow.
a fairly large cyst in my spinal column, which had to be taken out because it was pressuring on my nerves and making
Oh, so
me
you're just in constant pain, just
yeah, not constant, but it was like a cyst building up pressure when you're standing. During
So
the
is
day, it
everything
was and was and was.
recovery went well? We're doing good now?
Yeah, but I need the exercise part. I need to exercise quite a lot because this has been going on for many years. So I need to, yeah, regain strength really in my legs and such. So I need my 3 times exercise a week at least. Being social with someone is naturally also a big part of what I really need each week. So yeah, every month a bit more difficult for myself to answer. I'll go lots of hiking in the nature and such, and um,
Why? Why wouldn't you? You the
hmm?
country's beautiful. I said, why
Yeah,
wouldn't you go hiking in nature? I mean,
I
it's
think it's we are very lucky where I live because within like 45 minutes driving, there are like I could possibly say hundreds of possible hiking opportunities, and not very similar either. You can go into the mountains, you go like coastal landscapes, and you have a huge variety of hikes you can do and different difficulties. And if
oh,
you
it's
expand it
awesome.
a bit more, it's yeah.
There's
So
good research too, right, on mental health and spending time in nature.
yeah, I think that's good data on that, but maybe even better data on the high interval training.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think for me at least, it's no doubt about that. It works, and like like a more yearly basis, I love to travel.
Yeah, we've talked about this.
So and not traveling to the same spot every year, seeing different things, meeting different cultures, experiencing things.
What has been, I know it's hard to, you can't really pin down one, but um, have you been to any places that really surprised you? And it could be good or bad, and it could be multiple things. I'm just curious if you went somewhere and you were like, wow, this is such an interesting culture.
Um, I, I think every place I've been has been interesting in different ways. I think the further you away you go from your home country, the more surprises you meet and things are different from what you expected.
Yeah.
I've been traveling in the US a lot. I find mostly on the West Coast and in the like Grand Canyon area, Arizona and such. And I find that is spectacular nature. And
I think people in other continents don't always realize the vastness of the United
mm,
States. I mean,
yeah, you drive for hours and the landscape seems static.
and just the
It's-
differences between like the Northeast versus the West Coast. I mean, the Grand Canyon's unbelievable, and we
yeah,
have some really, truly amazing nature.
yeah. So I've been the longest trip I had in the US was around Grand Canyon. First driving from Los Angeles up to San Francisco along the coastal road, and then from San Francisco through Yosemite, the Death Valley, and around and northern part of Grand Canyon, and back again on the southern side, and
Oh,
down
it's so
to
cool.
San Diego. So that was, and then you see these huge landscapes, and yeah, really nice. But yeah, there's so many. India is a very interesting country,
Oh, I imagine.
and it's maybe the poorest country I've visited, like financially speaking, not culturally, naturally, but yeah,
Yeah,
making
culturally, it's rich, right?
extremely
They have
rich. But yeah, they have a it's very challenging situation, but really interesting. And
they have an unbelievable amount of people.
yeah, they do. They will, I think, they will become the most populous country in the world. I think, if they're not already. Um, so yeah, but every culture and every place have their own uniqueness, and um, yeah, and the more time you spend, the more you see. And as a tourist, you only always get the surface layer, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Traveling,
so
it just gives you so much perspective. And it
yeah,
kind of takes you out of, we're all a little bit narcissistic. We're in our heads, we see things from our lens, and then you go somewhere that's so different and you realize people can live in other ways and be happy and be
yeah,
successful. and do stuff. And it really just, it puts your narcissism to the side, I guess, and just gives you different things to think about. And that's what
Mm.
I really find interesting and love
Yeah.
about traveling.
You expand your frame of reference.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, as you say, there's so many different ways to live a life, and so
And
many ways, different
oftentimes
ways
I
to find
think
happiness. Mm.
And oftentimes I think we kind of surround ourselves with people with similar values,
Mm.
people who we grew up with, our families. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like we talked about
Mm.
having these relationships is I mean, important isn't even a strong enough word to begin.
Mm.
But there's also I think a lot of usefulness and just your sense of meaning and personally in talking to people who come from such different backgrounds, who have such more diverse opinions and thoughts and perspectives than you do. And I think
Mm.
there's a lot of value in that. And that's part of why Lund is so cool to me that we're all
Mm.
from the most part, I mean, we're all from different countries. Like I'm the only American in our class. It's so
Mm.
cool to hear your guys' stories and even how you perceive America and how
Mm.
I maybe perceive Europe and you guys tell me things. And it's been such a cool experience to do that and
Mm.
have these interactions.
I think anything which, any experience which expands your horizon is so important. We had like an interesting experience in India. We had yeah, a misfortune turned to a good opportunity. We ended up in a hotel, traveling with my partner and four kids. And we ended up in a
Oh,
hotel.
that's a lot. That's a lot of people to
Yeah,
travel with.
yeah, and we ended up in a hotel which was supposed to be a nice one, which wasn't. It was like a tragic hotel. It's like you could see the yeah, it
It's
had
like a
been.
horror movies setting.
Yeah, it's like a lot. Yeah, if you're a hotel, you think it's going to burn down the next 24 hours, and you see like yeah, rat droppings in the hotel room and
Oh
such.
no.
And we were sitting there, and the evening was just saying to the kids, "We are not. We were supposed to stay there for 3 days, and it was not going to happen." And it
Yeah.
was like I couldn't go outside without having someone from the hotel following me because for security reasons. So it was horrible.
Oh,
And
so
we,
not only was the hotel terrible, you guys were in a pretty rough area too.
exactly. So
With your kids,
uh, yeah, with
right? It's
four
one thing
kids.
if it's just
So
you got to
yeah,
be
yeah,
protective.
it's easier to deal with. But opportunity came because we got contact with like a travel agent, and that was in Delhi. So we wanted to see Taj Mahal and Jaipur. And so we made an arrangement to get a private driver, and they booked hotels for us. So for the next 3 days, we had a private driver, but he was a Sikh. Do you know Sikh?
Yeah,
Uh,
that's or what? Explain it to me exactly. I'm familiar with
uh,
the term, but I don't know.
yeah, it's yeah, it's belonging to the Sikh religion. What they, yeah, I don't know if I got the terms right in English now, but at least we had this driver, and he was yeah, talking English fairly well, but after these 3 days, and we've been talking a lot and asking questions and such, and we came back to Delhi, and he wanted to show his temple to us.
Oh, that's so cool.
And we was able to go and look around and see what you normally wouldn't see because they're making food for the poor. And we went through kitchens and he was talking and explaining and trying to yeah, tell us about his belief and priorities in life. And that was
I mean, what
yeah.
a unique experience.
Yeah, but I think such meetings, and always if you have a driver or a guide or something, I think there's so much to learn if you're open and just listen and yeah, ask questions and try to find out. So yeah, expanding horizons really. It's all about.
Yeah, that's a really great example, and I love feelings like that. Where in your case, you're like, I can't even like it's almost surreal. You're in India, you met this driver not that long ago, and he's showing you his temple and telling you about how he thinks about life. I mean, that's such a cool moment that
Yeah.
can only be captured when you put yourself out there and you're open to do things and try things.
So I think, yeah, all these experiences, yeah, it gives a richness which no one can take away from you. Money you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
always lose, your house you can lose, anything else you can lose, but experiences, that is, yeah,
And
and
experiences coupled with what we've talked about, human connection, is what made that
exactly.
so
And
meaningful. Because you could have seen that same temple, just walk through it. You wouldn't understand the meaning
no,
or
no,
or
it's just,
anything. It
well,
would have
it's just a
been,
building, and
yeah, a
yeah.
completely different experience.
So I think it's, yeah, we do prioritize traveling, yeah, a lot.
Do you have any trips planned?
At the time, no, we don't, but we have, yeah, we have been looking into a lot of different
What's
destinations.
what's pretty high on the list that you have
Oh,
not visited?
we have a very long list.
For you personally, what if I was like, look,
South America, Machu Picchu is
ah,
very high on the list.
Machu Picchu.
Yeah, the Galapagos Islands, maybe. Um, but also like,
That's a long ways from Norway. I'm just
it
picturing on a
is,
map.
yeah, it's. I also want to do it hiking. Like you can do like a 10, 14 days hike on these Inca trails. So that would be a dream if my legs are getting strong enough. So yeah.
So cool.
But yeah, I really, so many things I want to see, like Cambodia. Yeah, and
So
so
that
many.
your
The whole
problem
world,
is
really.
your problem is how much time do I have to go
Yeah.
see all these things?
Yeah, I need to get a really old man to see all I want to see.
Hey, I hope it happens.
But yeah, but we have it's about priorities as well. We don't go to luxury hotels. We go to cheap hotels, and that also brings totally different experience than going to like fancy places.
Yeah, yeah,
Fancy
definitely.
places are more alike across countries. So, if you're doing renting someone's house or apartments, you get lots of more personal connections and yeah, totally
And
different experience.
I wanted to do a solo trip. I don't know why. Sometimes I get these ideas in my head. I'm like, I got to do it. I think
Mm,
it'd be a cool experience. So I went to Colombia, to Medellin by myself, and I stayed in a hostel. And it was my first
mm,
time. It's my first time really staying in a hostel. I'd stayed in one before, but I was with all my friends in the room,
mm,
so I wouldn't count that. But this one I was with completely random people. And it was so cool the people I met. And I don't speak any Spanish. And that's one of
mm.
those countries where everyone speaks Spanish. So like I
Yeah.
wouldn't have been able to order at a restaurant had I not met these people. And
Mm,
just hearing their story, like I was with a guy from the UK, Spain, and Canada, and we
mm,
all became friends, and it was cool. We hung out these few days. They translated everything for me. I got to hear their perspectives. One of them, the guy from Canada, he said he edits videos on his own time. That's his job. And he just travels from place to place to place. He just makes sure he has enough money, picks a hostel, has Wi-Fi. He's
mm.
like, I'm good to go. I'm like, what a crazy lifestyle.
Yeah. But I think that's so many people say that, oh, I can't afford it, and I respect some people can't. That is, yeah, not, it is for some people true, but for many people, it's not a question really of finances. It's a question of priorities. We
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
go
yeah.
to fancy hotels. We don't go to fancy restaurants. We eat
It's all
local food.
trade-offs, right?
It
If you did do
trade-offs.
those things, you likely wouldn't have financially be able to travel as much
Yeah,
and
I could
as
maybe afford
fast
that.
as you do.
Exactly. One could maybe afford one trip or a year or every other year if you do it in an expensive way. But if you do it in a cheap way, you can travel 2 or 3 times a year. So I think
And
it's,
to
yeah,
you, it's the things you see, the people you meet. It's
yeah,
not about having some, luxury experience. You want to immerse yourself as much as you can in these countries and be a
exactly.
part of it.
We went to the Seychelles a few years ago.
What was
Not
it?
sure, the Seychelles. It's in the Indian Ocean between
Gotcha.
Africa. Yeah. It's a really nice place, but we had like most of the time in yeah, like Airbnb, not Airbnb, but similar, and that was really nice. And we have been thinking, for the last, I think it was 2 nights, we went to like a more luxury place because it was close to the airport, and okay, it was not that expensive, but it was still quite exclusive. Um, and was just regretting it afterwards because yeah, it was dead. It was culturally dead, and you don't go. Yeah, it's like any other hotel and rest of the world. Yeah, it was nice nature and it was lagoon and everything, but it was not the same, and just missing yeah,
The
cheap
more,
accommodation.
yeah, yeah. No, that
So
makes sense.
so yeah, connection is what it's about really. Meet yeah, just exploring and yeah.
And that's part of what too I think is so cool about starting this podcast is the connection piece and having
Mm.
these long form unedited conversations. I mean, it's so cool to hear different people's perspectives and even people I know well who I've had on, and obviously I'm starting this out, so there this has been a thing for like a couple weeks, but it's really cool the conversations I've had and the way this is framed and the things I've learned about people and even the way I've been able to formulate my thoughts better. I mean, it's like to me, this is meaningful going back to
Mm.
the purpose of meaning and talking to you. Like it's so cool the connection we have. I mean, how else would we have possibly met had it not been
Yeah,
for this program? I mean, I'm talking
exactly.
to a psychologist who loves to travel, who lives in Norway, who's lived a much different life than I have. I mean, it's so cool that we're here and just having a
Mm.
conversation. I
Mm.
really do enjoy this.
Yeah. But back to one of your questions a while back,
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
asked, what can you do for your mental health? And you was talking about the professionals seeing lots of difficult things, and I thought just to reconnect to that question,
Yeah, let's do it.
um, because I think it's creating some separation between your work and your private life. I think it's probably a thousand things one can say, uh, but that I think is one of the most important things to have some distinction between your private life and your work life.
How do you best do that?
I could just give an example, a simple example from my own experience. Lived in a house very close to my workplace, and I could ride a bike to work. And it took me like 4 minutes, and I was in the hospital.
4 minutes on the bike.
Yeah, 4 minutes on the
You were
bicycle,
super close.
um, and it was too close. Because at the time I was started my career and I worked with really heavy cases in acute psychiatry and I was exposed to most extreme kind of episodes of self-harm and everything and saw lots of things that one shouldn't see in
Sometimes I'm
one way.
sure not just self-harm,
Yeah,
also
and you have
homicidal
dealing with
ideations.
mental things and
Yep.
it's really, really challenging job, I would say. And you're going from that and 4 minutes on a bike and you're back in your own living room with the kids and everything and you're supposed to reconnect to this situation. It's not possible in 4 minutes.
Yeah, that's so true. You have no
So
time to decompress.
no, you did. So I put the bike aside and walked a bit longer route and with a colleague, actually a nurse, which I worked with, and we just took a slow stroll through the town, talking, and like from halfway we talked about work, and halfway we talked about private things,
Yep.
like fading out the work part
Well, it's such a good
gradually.
shift. And I think another thing to touch on is I feel like a lot of times in fields like ours, you become really close with your colleagues because there's information you can't tell your friends and
Exactly. Mm.
family. And the
Mm.
only way to really, you know, process it and get it out is to talk to your coworkers.
Yeah. So it was like I realized then I could use like 20 minutes or something to get back home, 20, 25 minutes. And when I was finished with my job, when I came back home, and then I could reconnect to this situation. So that's like a really simple example, but
No,
the other trap which we are falling into now, and maybe even more after COVID, is that you have home office and
yes.
you
How do you
mess it
disconnect
about
from that?
because and I see so many people struggling with burnout. And what they're doing is that they're constantly job working on a computer from home, and there is no really off time, and they're not able to disconnect from the work part. So I think having a good, if you're doing a home office, try to keep it like in one room or in one place or in one particular time frame, and not constantly reconnecting to a job. And even if you have a not that challenging job, like with traumatic things and such, even if yeah, even in such a situation, it is, you need the disconnect. You need to and some people think I have to be available for my employer all the time. And yeah, maybe the situation is a bit different in other countries, but mostly that is an imagined need. It's not a true need. You must have.
Even in our fields, it's
Yeah,
very, very rarely life or death.
yeah. I think in the rare case you need to be available, but I think sending an email or expecting that your boss needs a reply, sending an email 5 o'clock in the afternoon and want that reply before next morning. If your job is like that, you have a problem, and you would not. Yeah. So having yeah, sometimes you need to have a discussion with your manager and say that if it's anything
I
important,
did
I need you.
actually. I did
Yeah,
that.
good.
She
Yeah,
was texting my personal phone before
yeah.
work started, and I said, "Look, you can text my work phone. I turn it on during my work hours. I go,
Hmm.
you got to stop texting my personal phone. Now I'm just thinking about work."
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's. I have like a agreement with my manager that if he needs me, he call anytime. Mid of night, I would have no problem with it. But he shouldn't do it unless it's important.
Yeah,
Uh,
they yeah.
so I don't mind being available, but I do mind being constantly dragged back to work when it's not really needed. And if he really needs something, he should call. He should not send an email, because if I have to always be on the watch for new emails, which could be critical, that also keeps your mind on a walk, like in a walk mode all the time.
Right.
So you need to have like creating these boundaries in all kind of different levels
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
to protect your private life. Because if you don't, yeah, you won't survive long enough.
So
Uh,
you shared a lot. I have three things I want to touch on. You made my brain spin as you were talking. The first one is, I think, and you just used the word, what you're talking about is setting boundaries
hmm,
and making those make sense to you. And I think the example you gave is super helpful. And I struggle with this a lot. It's really hard to disconnect from work, especially when, you're dealing with people and it's emotionally charged and it's towards the end of the day. And I do the best I can, but I think setting those boundaries, like I'm going to stop working at this time.
hmm,
I'm gonna, decompress, or I'm not gonna talk about work after this, or like I use my example, told my supervisor, don't text my personal phone. Second
hmm.
thought, um, the working at home. Isn't it so crazy that we live in a world now where you can work a fully remote job, you can order groceries, Amazon. I mean, you hypothetically never have to leave your home. What
Yeah,
a weird thought, and oh, I just hate the idea of that.
in one way that gives some liberty, and some people like computer programmers or something uh, travel all
They
around the
got like
world and do their job.
27 monitors in their office.
No, but some of them work remotely, so they travel around the world and do their job. So in that
Yes, yes.
situation, you could say that it's liberating. But if you just bring it back home and you're constantly caught up in work, it's not liberating; it's a prison. So that's a quite different situation. So is the home office something that brings you more freedom?
It comes
Uh,
with trade-offs. Everything comes with trade-offs.
exactly. So you have to find this balance. How is my life going to be if I'm agreeing on this work situation where much of work is done from home, and how do I manage to reconnect to my private life? You could say one thing like connecting the dots there. If you have had a really bad day at work, experiencing quite traumatic things and such, I find myself that high interval training actually is a way to get the stress out of your body,
Yep.
because you can't run from this. Like if you're thinking about the time back on the savannah in our evolutionary prehistory, you could run away from danger. You can't run away from the stresses in modern society. But maybe there's some physical connection if you run or
Well, I think also it
sweat out the stress. Your mind calms, your body calms afterwards, and you might not get caught up in this constant anguish
well,
from what.
part of my thought with that, and I do the same thing. I had actually a pretty tough week this week. It was I feel like I was just dealing with a lot and it was heavy and things were going on. And I played tennis with my brother for an hour after work and I felt so
Yeah.
much better. But I think part of this, when you do this exercise, is you have all these thoughts in your head, right? But when you're doing something so physically hard, it almost makes you focus on a single thing, which is it's hard to think about work and all that when you're just trying to breathe because your heart rate's so high and you're pushing yourself. And I think just that aspect that you're just focused on something else, it's such a useful shift, not to mention the all the other benefits that come with
Mm.
just physical
Yeah.
activity in general. But for me, I think like if I have a really stressful day and I push myself in a workout so hard that I can barely breathe, it makes me feel so much better and I feel like I really shifted away from the thoughts I was having.
Mm. It's interesting that people are having panic attacks. If you train to do high interval training with them, starting when they have a panic attack, the panic attack disappears.
Like
Many
if you
times.
feel one coming on and then you just
Because yeah, I have had several patients having quite a lot of panic attacks, and I say, okay, next time you get one, jump on the bike if you can, and or go for a run, um, and
yeah,
and
move
and then
it
yeah, you match the activity what your body is experiencing it beforehand, and afterwards the body also comes down and your mind comes down. So yeah, so you need just to get the outlets from your stress
Yeah,
and
it's an
physical
outlet and
activity.
I think sometimes physically, right? Like even there's certain breathing things you could do, just something to bring you back to out of
Mm.
this world in your head and this narrative and these thoughts that
Mm.
are pacing, just even just taking a breath,
Yeah,
but especially moving is just
yeah,
I think there's something really valuable to it, at least for me personally.
yeah. I did lots of I have been doing lots of meditation and like starting in like in the 90s. Started that first time.
You've done
Um,
meditation since the
yeah,
90s?
but
That's something I've tried and I've never been able to do. I struggle with.
yeah, but in some situation, I'm not saying that it's not possible because some people probably manage, but if you have a very high stress level, it's just not the time to try to learn meditation. When it's
Mm,
more efficient, maybe for physical activity. But if you want to practice meditation, you have to do it on a time when yeah,
calm.
yeah, you're more matched in your arousal level at least, and then it can be useful for you in the next stressful situation. But it demands a lot of training. And yeah, a bit of training several times a week, and it will do much be of much mental benefit. But some people, oh, I can't meditate, and they just try it every time they're really stressed. And that is trying
That's how
to
I feel.
if you if you're trying to learn to put up a tent, you don't try to do it in a full storm. And I think that is, do you get the image? You have like yeah, you're not able to meditate in a full storm either, if it's a mental storm, and you're never going to learn to put up a tent in a full storm either. So you have to do it when it's calm, and then you might manage when the storm comes. So I think it's yeah, you need to use meditation and such techniques in a different way
Yeah,
than
yeah, it's a tool. And I can see if, like you're saying, you're kind of already baseline in a state of high arousal, and then you're trying to meditate and you're just getting so frustrated with yourself. And then you're
Mm.
thinking about how frustrated you are because why can't I do this? Why can't I stop
Mm.
thinking? And then you get into this loop where it's actually worse than where you even started.
Yeah, but if you have been doing it a lot, you can sometimes manage to get yourself out of a situation with
Yep.
meditation, but you don't learn it in these situations. You learn it in the yeah.
when you're
Yeah,
calmer. Yeah. And
exactly.
then it becomes a tool you
Exactly.
can use in that. That makes a lot of sense. That's a good way to frame it.
So, yeah.
Well, I have another thought I'm curious on just in general psychology related. And I think people often say, I'm anxious, I'm depressed, I'm OCD because I like my pencils a
Mm,
certain way. And I think it detracts sometimes from the fact that when we talk about these conditions, these diagnoses, that they're disorders and they to meet the criteria, they need to significantly impact an area of your life, right?
yeah.
And I think I don't know the best way to go about it, but it's just a thought I have. And sometimes I find myself frustrated because everyone's sad sometimes, everyone's anxious sometimes. Doesn't mean you have anxiety or depression. It,
Mm,
I feel like when we throw these terms around, sometimes it takes away from the people that truly do.
mm.
I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but
Yeah,
that's kind of
absolutely. It's and it's been it seems to be more common now that people, yeah, everyone is supposed to have some diagnosis almost, and that is, yeah. I have a dog coming to me if you're wondering what's happening besides me.
like what are you doing down there? Oh, hey, buddy. Hi.
Always seeking some attention. But I think it's two things. People are mixing up what is a disorder and what is just a state. Everyone can be
Yeah,
sad,
normal
but that
human
does,
feeling.
yeah, huge difference between depression and sadness. Everyone can be sad and have a blue day, but being really depressed is something quite different. And the same with anxiousness. Everyone can be anxious in a situation. Doesn't mean you have an anxiety disorder necessarily. Um, and everyone can be a bit, not everyone, but many people can be have a peculiarities.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
doesn't mean that they
We're
have
all
an
weird to an
OCD
extent.
or have an Asperger or anything.
Bipolar is another one people throw
Yeah,
around like, oh, they're
that
so
is,
bipolar.
oh, that's yeah. If you have met people with bipolar disorder, type 1 at least, you know that it's a different planet from what most people are talking about.
And I
It's
don't think people understand that there's phases of it. It's people generally using the term like in the same day, someone's in a good mood, then they're in a bad mood. It's like,
um,
no, you go through manic and depressive states, and this needs to be it's gotta be over a long period of time, and they're pretty
mm,
distinct.
in the old criteria for mania, it was that the episode has to be so serious that you was admitted in the hospital. If not, it was not a mania. And I think that might be too strict and too locked in one treatment path. But I think it's interesting because today people are talking about mania, and it's like, no, it's not mania. It's
Yeah, or I feel like it's got to be part of it's social media, right? Because I have a little sister, and she'll be like, my math teacher yelled at me. It was traumatic.
exactly.
I'm like, that is not traumatic, and it takes away from things that are actually traumatic.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's totally misleading, and
But it's
you
just a
have also
term, that people throw out.
yeah, and showing up in my Facebook feed and such and other social media. It's like, are you procrastinating? No, it's all about hidden childhood trauma or something. And I think, no, it's
No, you're
not.
just now you're procrastinating, trying to justify why you're procrastinating.
Exactly. So I think it's also, yeah, much misleading information about mental health. But the other aspect of it is that even if you have a disorder or if you have a problem, which is more significant, it must also not become an excuse.
Or it'll
And
be
no
debilitating if it
blaming
does.
patients. I'm quite clear about that. But the particular with like anxiety disorders, if you tell me I'm just an anxious person and I'm not going to do anything about it, you will continue to be an anxious person, and you probably get more and more anxious person. So it's
Well,
your
and I think an
responsibility to
important,
act.
yeah, yeah, and I think a good distinction is you're a you're a person with anxiety. You're not an anxious person,
Yeah.
or you're a person with a disability. You're not a disabled person. I think
Yeah.
using the person first language is helpful, and I
Mm.
know it sounds small, but uh,
Mm.
especially to people who don't work with these populations or in this field, but it does matter. I mean, at the end of the day, we're people, and you may
Yeah.
have stuff that needs help, but it doesn't define who you are, nor should
Mm.
it's problematic if you feel like it does.
Yeah. But it's, yeah, and it takes away the element also that the individual responsibility to work on the problems, the issues you have, because everyone has issues, and you need to face them, and you need to work on them. Uh, and one popular problem now is I have ADHD, so I cannot do this or cannot do that, or
I
that
wanted to touch
explains why I
on.
do this or that. And ADHD is a serious condition, and not that many people have it. But even if you have it, you need to do your utmost to compensate for your issues. And sometimes that is extremely difficult, and all respect for that. But never use your diagnosis, even if it's clinical criteria is met, as an excuse for anything.
I
It's a
think,
try setting a name on something and trying to help you
yeah, yeah.
and guide your path forward. But very careful, not for others, but for yourself. If you start using an excuse for yourself, you damage for yourself. What it does to others, you don't need to think about, but it will damage for yourself.
Well, I
Uh,
think ADHD and autism, these are two interesting diagnoses in the sense that the amount of people who have been diagnosed with these
mm,
has gone up unbelievable percent. I mean,
yeah.
probably thousands of percents in the past decade or so. And it may be
Mm,
different than in the United States or Norway, but when you get to ADHD, a lot of the criteria, and I know it is for everything, is pretty subjective. I
mm,
know they try to make it objective, but I look back as myself as a kid, and I had a lot of energy. I was distractible.
mm,
I did pretty well in school. I was able to focus, but I could see someone looking at me and being like, this kid exhibits ADHD.
yeah.
And I think we diagnose kids that are so young. I'm like, how do you differentiate that they have a disorder versus they're just being a kid? And then you get into these medications, which are really powerful medications. And then autism rates too. It's interesting. Like it's, it, I almost wonder because there is on some level you're either underdiagnosing or overdiagnosing, and it feels like it's shifted. And this isn't to take away because these are absolutely real things, and
Yeah,
people
absolutely.
have
Mm.
these and need help. But you almost wonder if you're doing more harm than good telling someone they have ADHD or treating them or giving them medications if maybe they don't. But it's so hard to say, and obviously
Mm.
every parent and person makes the best decision they can with the
Mm.
information they have, but it's risen so exponentially in the United States. I don't know if it's similar in
It's
other
the same in
countries and your
Norway. Norway
thoughts.
is actually one of the countries mostly following the US in this development. So even if
Interesting,
you
interesting.
more than other European countries actually. So it's interesting. Yeah, but I think yeah. Um, it's not doing the population a favor, I believe, giving too much diagnosis. But at the same time, it's really serious if you avoid giving a diagnosis. So it's this balance. It's really hard. Mm.
Yeah, it is. And then it's interesting in states with higher average income levels and socioeconomic status, the more people are diagnosed. And part of it's because people afford more healthcare and probably,
Yeah.
are able to and do these things. But that's interesting too, like one in X amount of kids in New Jersey
Mm.
versus Arkansas.
But it's also the societal demands. I think it was one interesting study looking at some of the genes associated with ADHD. ADHD is not a genetic disorder in itself, but there are some genes related to ADHD-like symptoms. And we looked at tribes in Africa,
Mm,
and looked at people having more of these genes. Not meaning that they had ADHD, but looking at how these people managed. And we looked at tribes which was nomadic or stationary. It's not probably
interesting.
not the right word. And also all the tribes had been nomadic, and some had turned stationary. Um, And they saw that the people with these ADHD genes had a better social status, better nutritional status if they lived in a nomadic society.
Because they were
And
moving
if,
more, they were more
if the tribes
stimulated.
settled down and stayed in one place, the ADHD genes turn out to be a disadvantage. But
But in the other sense, they can be advantageous.
nomadic advantage settles in disadvantage. So
Oh, it's
it's just like
interesting.
the societal demands. And what if you are living like a life in a Western country and high income a group? This that is not necessarily a life fitting very well to like an ADHD type functioning. So it's yeah, but you see sometimes people with like really clearly ADHD symptoms, if you could call it that, but manage to find a job or social situation that works for them,
Yeah, yeah.
and that turn this disadvantage, potential disadvantage, to a huge advantage, and to yeah able to. Yeah, not get the functional impairment that the disorder otherwise could have given. So it's not really a disorder anymore because it doesn't have an implied impairment.
Yeah, it's
So
just
I think we need a flexibility. It must be possible to live one's life in many different ways and accept that people live different lives and some of the issues, not all naturally, but some of the issues will have a lesser impact on
yep.
their life.
Yeah, I remember this girl in college. She said she went to go get tested for ADHD, and they basically handed her a piece of paper with a survey saying rate how like true this is to you, 1 to 10, and they gave
Mm.
her started getting prescribed medication after it.
Mm.
And I think she did have it, or at
Mm.
least exhibited traits of it. But I'm like, that's such a I don't know if it's just such a sort of subjective, or not necessarily subjective, but that's kind of all you have to go on as a healthcare
Mm.
professional is how people
I,
feel. But I'm like, that's crazy. That's what her diagnosis was a cert from a
yeah,
survey.
yeah, it's quite subjective, and so yeah, meaning that one should be very uh, yeah thoughtful in setting the diagnosis and the impact on how people understand themselves. When you set a diagnosis, you will just set a name on something. You just describe something. You don't get ADHD. You have the symptoms already.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
just
yeah.
trying to describe how you're functioning, and some people, yeah, misconstrued that in some way. And I got ADHD. No, you had it all the time. We're just trying to find out how you're working and finding a path to help you. So, and that if yeah, most mental disorders, it's not something you get. It's something you have, and you're trying to find a way to manage and seeking a path to treatment or
Yeah, and they're
yeah,
all and
advice.
everybody's different. Every situation's complex. There's levels to the same
Mm.
disorders. I mean, it's a really, really complex field that you
Mm.
work in.
So
And all you can do is the best you can, right? Local
exactly,
rationality.
and you will do. And some things will go wrong. Sometimes you make mistakes or don't see something that you should have seen or should have seen. Maybe it wasn't possible to see it, but you could afterwards. Why didn't I see it?
Well, it's like
Yeah,
you know the Richard Cook illustration of
yeah.
the
Foresight,
thought process
hindsight. Yeah,
before and yeah, and then you look back and you see the single linear path
yeah.
that each decision you made led to this. When in real time, there's all the different ones. I mean that.
And it's also this professional pride.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because if you do a mistake, the pride is hurt.
Well, that's what
And
I think. And part of our program is saying that is that people already feel bad when they feel like they made a mistake or they feel like they should have done something. Punishing them more it isn't useful or helpful if you want to understand and learn and just coming from the perspective that people come to work to do a good job. Maybe not everyone's as, a go-getter as everybody else, but most people aren't coming to
mm,
work to do a bad job, to harm client. I mean, the fields we're in, these people dedicate their professional lives to helping vulnerable populations. It's really an amazing thing. that people do it and know how complex it is and
mm,
know how difficult it is and know that it may come with trauma and be hard to disconnect from and they still show up to work and do these things and supporting the people who do that is so important instead of just acting
mm,
like they're the reason that something went wrong. And like you said in the beginning, we're not preventing harm. We're coming into a situation where there's already harm and there's
yeah.
already stuff that needs to be addressed. And it's yeah, that's my train of thought. I'm done.
Yeah, it's a different situation, and I think it's also from if you have a colleague who has made a mistake, it might be easier to say, "Oh, that's he's not that smart, or he's not as skilled as me,
And
or he's
I
not
would have
this or
never done that.
I would never done that." But that's just a way to keep yourself image intact and your perception of control of a life. And because one of the scariest things in life for everyone, one of the most like existential anxieties we have is losing control.
And we
So I
have
think much
less
of
control
this,
than we think when it comes to our
yeah, and
outcomes on our cases.
exactly. And I think much of what we see in like safety investigations that people are blamed for things they couldn't have seen coming. I think it's the people around us need to have control. Because if I'm going to accept that this could happen to my colleague, it could as easily happen to me, and then my life is not any as secure as I believed.
Yeah, and then
Uh,
it's
so,
like Friendly Fire. That book's such a good example of when,
mm,
especially when outcomes are worse, right? There's multiple people died in this Friendly Fire incident in Iraq. And for him to do an analysis and come to the conclusion that everyone was doing things that made sense.
mm,
Nothing went wrong, no one went rogue. I mean, it's a absolutely terrifying thought that
mm,
there really is no justification or explanation or
mm,
thing to blame or anything. I mean, how do you tell and like we had to do in our assignment, write a letter to families. How do you
mm,
explain that hey, everyone was doing exactly what they were supposed to be doing, what made sense to them given everything. Yeah, sorry this happened. We there was like there's no it doesn't feel like you can learn anything or do
mm,
anything or justify what happened. And it's a really unsettling feeling. And it makes sense
mm,
why we're, I guess, wired and inclined to seek more linear explanations because it
mm,
gives us that sense of control and
mm,
understanding. And oh, that's why, you know?
mm. And I think it's like a evolutionary drive as well because believing that you have no control might make you more passive than is useful. But in our extremely complex societies, this drive is not so useful in all
Yeah.
situations. Learned helplessness is the opposite, yeah, where you of this reaction where you feel that nothing I do matters anyway, and you're like
And, and that may be
kind of
true, but it's
depressed
important
state.
not to feel that.
But we have to accept this uncontrollability and not falling into the learned helplessness trap. That is the
Well, I think it
challenge.
goes back to what you were saying earlier is you have to find whatever's meaningful to you. And that's going to be highly
Mm.
individual. And that's what keeps you from that sense of, well, I'm just on a floating rock in the middle of nowhere doing
Yeah,
nothing. Nothing I do matters, just full nihilism, right?
yeah,
You need that sense of purpose, whatever it is, whether it's,
mm,
religious, whether it's your
yeah,
career, your relationships, a blend of all of it.
mm,
I mean, that's what I think, and you may have a better explanation than I'm giving, but I think that's what keeps people sane is these
mm,
narratives we tell ourselves and these stories and the people we surround ourselves and the purpose that we tell ourselves we're living.
mm,
Wow, that
yeah,
was that was a deep thought, wasn't it?
yeah. But yeah, I think it's finding some meaning in life, and Norway and the US are in quite opposite ends of a scale of religiosity. Uh, Norway have like a huge amount of atheists in the population.
Ah, interesting.
The
I
US is quite high level of believers still.
I think across
But
the world though, people are shifting less away from traditional religion. Is that right? I feel like I've
yeah,
noticed that.
it's some different developments in different countries, but like the Scandinavian countries have been like shifting to non-belief in a very significant degree. So like half population do not believe in God, at least.
Ah,
Uh,
interesting. But
uh,
regardless what you believe, I think kind of what we touched on earlier, if relationships are important, a sense of community and purpose, and
yeah,
religion provides
yeah,
all those things. So if
yeah. I
people are
think
moving away from that, you a substitution is pretty important.
Yeah, I think that is what people misread sometimes because I think say that atheism is without morals, and in one way you could say that one could agree in that because not believing in God doesn't tell you what you should do instead, or how you should live your life. But I think atheism's belief system, if you should say so like that, is if you think about ethics, would be humanism. So because you have to connect to some moral reference frame, and I think the humanistic ethics
Yeah.
those are quite compatible with most basic religious concept as well, but just taking the faith element away from it, and yeah, I don't think it's no incompatibility in the so many of the basic cornerstones in humanistic ethics and like a Christian belief system, like is popular in the US. So yeah, you cannot just say I'm atheist and stop at that point. That doesn't tell you anything about how you're going to live your life or what you're going, also how you what's moral reference frame you have. So you have to have some principles and meaning. But the reason I came into this is that you're talking about meaning. The real challenge in not having a religious viewpoint is that meaning is not given. You have to find it yourself. You have to create it yourself.
And isn't that a scary thought?
That is a scary thought. I had that journey myself because I was religious as a youth and left religion when I was like 17. And that was a really challenging time to find what is right, what is wrong, what's the purpose of life.
How did you go about that process for yourself?
Yeah, much mental work. That is a huge topic, but yeah, it's a really challenging process to try to find. Okay, what now? What now?
Yeah, that's
What should I think about different ethical questions which are raised in society? If I cannot read it from a book or hear it from a pastor, how am I going to know what is right and wrong and what
and you have to
foundation?
create that. Yeah, you have to create that for yourself.
Yeah, find a foundation, find an understanding, and be willing to revise that because you don't have
Yeah.
any
But
fixes.
even in speaking of religion, there's still stuff that's up to interpretation. You still
Absolutely,
it gives you a
absolutely.
framework. You
Yeah,
still
yeah,
have
yeah.
to find that meaning, what's
Yeah,
right, what's wrong for yourself as well.
absolutely. I totally
I mean,
agree.
you think of the Christian religion, the amount of denominations there are is it's a lot.
It's yeah, it might not seem as one religion if you compare the most extreme endpoints yeah in different topics
Yeah.
of belief. Mm.
One thing I think we've kind of touched on or maybe danced around is I think another thought, and you've spoken of, evolutionary traits and aspects that have led to the way we think. And I think part of almost never being satisfied and kind of a sense of anxiety was super advantageous, right? When we were we were moving place to place, you're hunting, you're always like ready for the next thing and motivated to keep doing stuff. And I think I don't know, I feel like there's a sense where we think if we have this, oh, life will be great. Or when I have this, I'll feel this.
Mm.
And we don't. And I think we're never truly satisfied, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's cool that you can go along life and keep learning new things and keep wanting new things,
Mm.
and the way your perspective changes. I think, but I just think you could fall into a trap where you think if I do this or if I have this, then I'll feel like this when you don't know how you'll feel.
Oh. And mostly people fall back to their baseline. It has been some studies looking at people either winning the lottery or ending up
I've
in a
read
wheelchair.
this. Was
Yeah,
this in what book was that they taught? Was it
um,
Happiness Hypothesis or something
yeah,
like that?
something like that. And most people fall back to the baseline.
And then they
So
also did people who got I think like permanent disabilities like
yeah, yeah.
injuries to their, and they also kind of they came back to baseline.
Yeah, so it's I'm not like deterministic and believe that baseline cannot be changed, but one has to realize that such things happening in life is not what determines your happiness. It's
Yep.
your more general approach to life,
And I
and
think the baseline, what changes it is exactly what we talked about, relationships, and
yeah,
then your sense of meaning and purpose. And
yeah,
what are you waking up and doing?
exactly.
That's what will change your baseline, not the, really fancy steak dinner you had, or
Yeah.
not the, raise you got. It's your
Mm.
relationships and it's your sense of purpose. I think those are the only two things that could shift your baseline.
Yeah,
Everything else is a
I
temporary.
do believe other things could change as well, but it's yeah,
What
it's
else do you think?
um, I do believe that changing one's expectations from life and working on that, and and maybe gaining some more inner peace. That sounds like
Maybe I'd argue that was in
cliche,
my
but,
sense of
but
meaning.
yeah, but I think if you realize that you cannot take accountability for other people's emotions, as an example, I have to take responsibility for me and make sure that what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, and what I'm saying, what I'm believing is justifiable. I think that such things brings much to your yeah, sense of happiness in the world because if you are living to please others and not just taking care of yourself, if you're yeah pursuing false happiness or status in society and all these kind of things, yeah, you just lose out. So I think it's yeah many things elements maybe related to what you're talking about as well, but
Yeah,
many things you
absolutely.
can do to change your
And all of it's much easier
baseline.
said than done, right? You can't just
It takes years, yeah, to change.
decades,
Yeah,
perhaps.
I do believe that as well, yeah. So,
But yeah, it's crazy. I think and I'm younger, so but even like how I thought last year is different than how I think this year. I'm like,
yeah,
I can't, I don't even know the type of person, like, or not that may be dramatic. I know I'll still be me, but the way I think about things and the things I want and prioritize may be completely different in 10 years, let alone 20, 30, 40.
absolutely.
And but I'm excited for all of it. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's all
No,
part of life,
embrace it.
and things change, and there's that.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
well, I think we've had a good combo. We've been talking
Yeah,
for
I think
about
we have spent a
2 hours
bit
now.
more time than expected.
I know when I started this, I like to talk, and I'm more extroverted on the scale, and then I have some background in doing videos, so I thought it'd be a cool idea. I've had this idea in my head for a while, and I did the first episode with my brother, and we just sat down and talked, and after we were like, that was so easy. Like we thought it'd
Yeah.
be, maybe a little awkward or hard, but
Mm.
it's cool talking about things, and you're able to just, I don't know, like it doesn't even feel like it's been 2 hours, to me at least.
Yeah. Mm.
But I think it's a cool format. So thank you so much again for agreeing to
Yeah.
do this and coming on. And it's such a cool perspective to to talk to you from Norway with your background and the way you look at the world. I love all of it. So really, really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. That's very nice. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I will hit stop recording and we'll wrap it up unless there's any other final thoughts you
No,
want to end on.
no, no, that's good.
I
Yeah,
think we covered it. We solve life's problems. We're
yeah,
we're
yeah.
good.
It's everything done.
All right, I'm ending it.